Hi, Kendra.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us here on Hiker's Dream. I'm Landslide. How are you?
I'm doing well. And is it Valdis or Val? What would you like me to call you?
Val is good.
Great.
Val, yeah.
Great.
Okay,
Thanks for having me.
so yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you actually. What's happening? um,
Yeah.
Tell me about, yeah, what's going on with your hikes and everything here.
Yeah. First, can you just orient me a little bit about this project, about the hiker's dream, and tell me a little bit about it so I know how to.
Well, I'm broadcasting here from an underground bunker in Mexico, just so you know, but it's started. I just started this about a couple months ago, just to get to promote hikers and outdoor life, and particularly in the environment, because the planet's dying. So I just wanted to see if hikers could get involved somehow, and what they're doing out there is so cool because the community, for one thing, is like really supportive of each other. And we don't see that in the world. Everybody's competing against each other, but actually it's about supporting each other. So I thought hikers are a kind of cool bunch. And I did the PCT with my son in 2014. And I saw that, firsthand, and we came back. It's been a while, I know, but I'm starting this kind of idea to just promote what we're doing with hiking and the environment through that. So we'll see what happens.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for that.
And what's your background in hiking, and what's going on currently?
Yeah. So I did my first long trip was a long bicycle trip. Previous to that, I had done, well, I did a month-long hiking trip, but the first sort of through hike, place to place trip I did was a biking trip across. And that was maybe a decade ago, and then really fell in love with slow, long form travel. And so I've also done the Camino de Santiago, which was great because it had these cultural elements. And you're going through cities and towns, but then I also really do love the wilderness and the remoteness and the in the sun all day, every day, or in the outside all day, every day of the long distance hiking. And so since then, I've done Pacific Crest Trail in 2018 and the Continental Divide Trail um, 2 summers ago. And then this summer, I was back out on the Pacific Northwest Trail, which I only did a section of this summer. But that was wonderful. And also a couple years ago, did the Colorado Trail.
So you're experienced. You're a hiker. Yeah.
Yeah, once I did the Pacific Crest Trail with a partner, and then the Continental Divide Trail I did on my own. But once we did the Pacific Crest Trail, I'd done backpacking before, but backpacking added to this long form, slow moving through the world for a very long period of time in that predictable way of a trail. Really, yeah, I got sold. I like it a lot.
You're hooked. In other words, like a lot of us.
Exactly.
But you know what I found on the Pacific Crest Trail, which is the only long distance trail I've done, is like I felt I was on a freeway a lot of times because because I'm kind of slow, and the hikers were just zooming past me, the young people especially, and I really felt like, yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's like, the goal to get to Canada before the weather turns, and etc. So there's that, but even that, I felt like I needed to slow down a little bit. And my son actually did slow down. He didn't finish the whole trail because he wanted to do side trails and really spend some time in each area that he liked and was attracted to. So it's kind of an interesting thing to even out there. I felt people were rushing. I get the goal part, but then there's almost, I don't know. It's not really a stress, but you gotta make it. A lot of people were like that, or their passports run out. If they're from another country, they got to make it. So there's a little bit of that too, the stress, you know. But so I see what you're saying about slowing down.
Yeah, and to knowing a lot of hikers, I think that for me, I have found that I pick trails and I pick ways of doing trails given where I am in my life. And so sometimes what I need is that goal. And that's actually a really, really important part of it. And sometimes like this summer, I didn't need that goal. I didn't need that finishing. Instead, I needed just to really enjoy my time, whatever speed that meant. And I like this idea. Some people I think will choose one way to hike and they'll hike that way consistently. And for other people, I like this space to say, maybe this trail is about this for me, but maybe a different trail can be about something else, right? And sometimes the speed is part of it, right? But sometimes the slowness is part of it. And sometimes I know for me, there's times when I am more interested in being around more hikers, and that can really dictate my pace depending on what on the Continental Divide Trail, I started a little as I was waiting to get fully vaccinated. And there were so many days I didn't see a single other person in New Mexico. So we're hikers, right? So that changed my pace as well. So I think I like this idea that there's not a static way of hiking, even for individual hikers, right? That we change given what we need as the human animals that we are, and also given what possibilities that trail has.
That's so cool that you brought that up, because I haven't really heard that before. It's like each trail has a different maybe goal or tempo or idea why you're hiking it and how you hike it. So that's kind of cool, because I think people get stuck maybe in one set idea about what hiking is. That's good. Good. So what did you become more aware of in general? Once when you're outdoors and when you've been doing this so long, what do you become more aware of?
Yeah, so you had asked, what do I notice more? And I would say there's all the things that are probably pretty common to notice more. And I put those in sort of the category of delights or of tactileness or all these things, the sort of being in the present moment. And so for me, getting in town food and town coffee and showers and beds, but also on the other side, getting back up to trail and the feel of the rocks or the wind or the trees, just very much aware of that. But then the other thing that is a way that I relate to these hikes is I do a lot of drawing while I'm hiking. And I find that my drawing style does change. It's different on hikes than it is not on hikes. And for me, one way I think about that is in hikes, it's a little more wild. It's a little less restrained, a little more feral, a little less, polite, a little more immediate.
Yeah, you're the artist. Okay. Yeah, that's so cool that you can do that. Geez, you're cool. Yeah, this is cool. The way your perceptions are with the outdoor life and hiking. No, there's so much I want to ask you here. So keep talking. I have a lot of questions, but keep talking. It's still choppy. Am I choppy too? So I wonder.
I can hear you pretty well.
Okay. It might be my end. I don't know. Sometimes the internet here is choppy. Because it comes up on my screen, the internet connection is weak, something.
Oh, I think that's probably on your side then, because my side, this internet is usually pretty reliable and it's not giving me any.
Okay. Well, let's see how we can get through this. Otherwise, we'll reschedule. Because some days it's not good here. Not as good. I'm in Baja, between Rosarito and Ensenada in Puerto Nuevo, lobster capital of the world.
Oh.
So.
I'm on an island off of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which also has some lobster.
Okay, New Hampshire. You're on an island.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You live on an island. Okay.
Just for the moment, I'm trading them. I'm working in the kitchens 3 days a week for room and board and a little bit of wages. And then I'm drawing the rest of the time.
Okay. Are you doing a book or anything? You have any publications with your drawings?
I do. So I publish with various magazines. The New Yorker magazine is the biggest name among them, but others as well. And I am working on a book at the moment, but that's going to be years in production.
And what's that going to be about?
At the moment, it might change a lot in the time, but at the moment it is a graphic novel. It's fiction, but it does have a lot of elements that come from, I think, the hiking experience that I've had.
A fiction novel, mainly on the hiking and...
Not mainly on hiking, but I would say a lot of the drawings I do while hiking are going to inform it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wrote a book about basically an autobiography, about my life, and hiking was a big part of it. Because when I came back from my hike, it just changed my viewpoint of things, and that's when I got involved with the environment. saving the world, kind of idea, because lots going on here with that. We can do some, major to offset what's going on with, what we're sharing. We can do a lot for people, that are stuck in their 9 to 5 thing, So did you have a regular job ever? Or how old are you? Can I ask you how old you are?
Or I'm 35.
Okay, well, you're up a little bit.
I've been around for a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So have you been married or family or job? What have you done before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are you still married? Or what?
I've done a bunch of different jobs. I've done a lot of jobs in food service. I was a bartender for a long time, but I've also there was a time when I worked in the office as the office manager and then as a user researcher, because I've got a degree in anthropology. And so that informs my cartoons and also how I see the world. The sort of lens of what I take from that is you never get away from your own bias. And so the best thing that you can do is try to understand your bias and have it become a part of what you're doing rather than ever imagine a world that you can see it without the lens of you and your own bias in it.
That's good, because we have to live with ourselves. Yeah. I mean, we are. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can. Okay.
Yes.
I'm cutting it out a little bit, but yeah, that's good, because we have to manage, our filters, our bias, and that's just reality. If we're here in the physical world, that's part of our, what we took on, this personality that we've created for ourselves. So we have to work with it and not like abuse it or get rid of it, because that's, we just don't have anything to work with. Like a car, we get in a car, drive it, we're using it. So we're getting this body and using it. So we pick up certain attitudes, considerations, and ideas along the way. And if you believe in lifetimes, reincarnation, I mean, we have a whole stack of stuff we're bringing along with us, a whole lot of baggage, So we have to manage that. So that's good. That's cool, what you're doing. When was the first time when was your first hike? How old were you? And how did you get interested in outdoor life?
My parents are outdoorsy, and so they definitely took me on walks and hikes. And my mother introduced me to backpacking. And then when I was in college, I already knew a little bit about backpacking. And so I joined up with they did orientation trips for freshmen. So I never went as a freshman, but then I started leading them as an upperclassman and started teaching other people to lead them. And that was really enjoyable. But then it was really, having led a bunch of trips, it was really nice to transition to a time where I was just hiking by myself or hiking with friends or my partner, so that there wasn't that element of constant teaching, but just that element of experiencing it with other people who are sort of at the same comfort level as myself.
How old were you then when you got your first hike with your parents?
My first backpacking trip was in middle school. Yeah.
Do you have a trail name?
My trail name is Skunk Bear.
Okay, there's a story behind that.
Always, right?
Yeah.
It's another name for a wolverine, but I didn't want to take the trail name Wolverine, but I got it because of my voracious appetite and my opportunistic scavenging.
Okay.
I do both around food and also whatever else is in the hiker box. I'll definitely get in there and sniff around and grab whatever I need.
Okay, so you don't send packages ahead, or you live off the trail food or trail boxes and stuff?
I don't live off the hiker boxes, but I do like checking them out. But we send boxes sometimes. Mainly we buy in towns.
Yeah. I've got a bunch of questions here, but you're so cool. I just want to I want to do something interesting here. Biggest challenge in hiking? What's been your biggest challenge out there in general? I know each hike is different.
Yeah, I would say the Pacific Crest Trail, honestly, there weren't a lot of challenges. It was kind of dreamy the whole time. It was delightful. Because this is the thing. Each trail, right? Trails are different to different people. depending on their experience, their different times of life and what that trail is. And so for me, the Pacific Crest Trail was not an adventure. It was a delight. It was like this wonderful trip that I took. And then the Continental Divide Trail for me personally, and especially at that time of life, was an adventure. It was hard. I wasn't sure I could do it. It was scary at times. It was wonderful at times. It was all those different things. I set in about 3 months in, right? So 3 months I've been hiking, and then suddenly this thing that you know that you love doing is also becomes very boring. And that's fine. And to be okay with the fact that sometimes it's boring and sometimes it's fine. The Continental Divide Trail was quite different. The hardest thing for me was the lightning by far. I was very fearful of I'd gotten caught in a lightning storm a year or two before, and it hadn't seemed to affect me a lot at that time. But then when I hiked the Continental Divide Trail, which stays high and above tree line for long sections in a mountain range that collects thunderstorms and just dumps them all the time, that was a super hard struggle for me. It was just fear of death.
Wow.
Yeah.
What year did you do that? CDC kind of.
I did that. The Continental Divide Trail in 2021.
Oh, recently. Okay.
Recently.
Okay. Okay. How about people you met? The characters. Any characters that stood out in all your hikes?
So many, right? That's such a wonderful part of it.
Right.
And I would say, as you were saying before, you started by saying how it is a really interesting community, and it's a community that can give a lot and get a lot from themselves, but also to the larger world. And what I love about hikers, especially when you're meeting a lot of them, is that we've come up with really creative ways to live, a lot of us, right? It's already a big decision to take a chunk of time off. It's not something that's supported ideologically by a large chunk of our society. It's not something that's supported policy-wise or supported, infrastructure-wise, or with the way a lot of jobs are set up. And so already you're meeting a segment of people who've made a choice that's pretty distinct and pretty true to who they are and what they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Farther and farther into it, right? So on the PCT, you meet people who are really deep into it, and you also meet people who manage to get 6 months off, and this might be the only time they do this. On the CDT, you meet people who have built really interesting looking lives the way that they want them built. And being around a bunch of people who have done that all in different ways, I think is just utterly joyful. You learn things, you think of things that could work for you, and you also just see so many different ways of living that are more interesting and thoughtful.
So yeah, when I came back from the PCT, I've been living in a tent since then for 8 years, So why am I paying rent when I've been out for 5 months and enjoying the wilderness? Why don't I just be homeless, basically, So I'm basically, I position myself so I'm not too weird, but I'm living outside, basically. Well, here in Mexico, it's a lot easier anyway, because there's less restrictions, and it's more like the Wild West out here. So it's very true.
And I like that framing. I think that's a fun way to think about it. The positioning yourself so it's not too weird, because I think that the fun thing is you're dealing with a world that people sort of see as like, are you doing the normal thing or are you not? But when you actually get into it, there's a million different ways of doing it. And to think for yourself, like, what are the parts that I love about hiking? What are the parts that are, fine? What are the parts that I love about a more stable life? There's also something really useful about being in community that you're around physically. And then, the hiker community, you're around them physically really intensely, but then it gets pretty dispersed after the trail ends. I love cooking, right? So what's important to me about having a place to cook where I can actually do some elevated cooking when I'm not on trail, but also I can, let go of that for chunks of time. I think asking those, getting the questions more specific rather than these sort of broad questions of like, are you going to work for 40 hours a week for your entire life, or are you not? But this questions of like, what are the ways, what are these different things? And that not too weird, I think, is actually a nice lens, because I think I've always been more of a shapeshifter of sliding into the trail, sliding back into, I live in Brooklyn, New York, have for the past decade when I'm not out and about. And so also love the cities and have worked in a more regimented way. And so what do you need at what time, and the fact that that can change pretty fluidly, I think are some of the great questions that come up when you're hanging out with hikers.
Yeah, the system really promotes normalcy, to be normal. There's like, you are trained almost or brainwashed to be normal. Like there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it, you know? And that's kind of too bad because you lose a lot of individuality and uniqueness that everybody is. So it's good to get away on a hike to see what else is out there, and that's one of the best ways. I mean, you could take drugs, but a lot of people do to get away. But this is like, you know, you're in nature. In a way, you're supporting it by not polluting it too much. Here in Mexico, I don't know why these Mexicans, they litter, you know, they just throw stuff around. It's too bad. They're good people. They're sincere, real, but they have certain tendencies, just like each culture does. But this culture, they throw papers, stuff at the beaches. Everything's kind of, I don't know why, weird. So anyway, okay. What are you going to do next? What's your next goal here besides your book? Your ongoing writing? What else are you doing?
Yeah, I don't have a next one trail, and so instead the next is really sort of shaking it up. So I've been over the past decade. I don't have to pay for the apartment; someone else is in it while I'm hiking, and then I've gone for these beautiful hikes. And so it's been sort of an intense urban experience and then an intense hiking experience. And that has been wonderful for a long time, but that's no longer a balance that is working out great for me. And so the next chapter, I think, is to try a lot of things until I find the next balance that works. And that's going to include, for example, working out here, right? So this is a test to see what's most important to me about my work is to come up with the best work that I can. And there was a time when working 40 hours a week in New York City was a wonderful way to cartoon. Right now, it's really nice after this pandemic has been so isolating. It's really nice to be around a community of people. So here I'm working on an island with 100 other people. I'm working in the kitchens. It's very social. The work uses my body. It's exploration that's going to take a bunch of months or maybe a year or two to figure out what's the next balance for this next stage in my life.
How did you get started in cartooning? Were you a little kid doodling on your desk?
I did a little bit of drawing when I was young, but I was more into acting, a more social version of the same ideas. And so I was in a sketch comedy group. And so we would write comedic sketches that lampooned culture, and then we would act in them as well. And I loved that. And then I moved to New York City, and I had no longer had my group, and I had no interest in doing a solo act or trying to put a group together. Props, you need to come up with characters, and you need to, you know, it's all that kind of thing, but you can do it by yourself at a desk with a piece of paper.
Okay. I'd really like to interview, really like to talk again. I kind of like to keep these to a half an hour, so I think we'll stop, but I really like to talk to you again because you're a very interesting person, not just hiker, but just you have a good viewpoint about the world and itself and reality. It'd be neat to explore that with you. So let's do this again sometime, a couple weeks maybe. And if you want to send me any sketches, videos, photos, contact information, we'll include it in the final edit here. And then I put it out. I'm creating like a YouTube channel. I'm kind of slow with it, but I've got a bunch of interviews, but I've got an editor putting all this together. So if you send me all your stuff that you want included, we can put that in there too. And I'll send you the link to it. And I'll send the link out to some of the Facebook groups, the hiker groups, etc. But I would like to get you back. It'd be cool. Kendra, you're wonderful. You're a wonderful person.
It's been great chatting. I'll send within the next couple of days. I'll send you some bits.
Okay, it'll probably be 3 days or so until I get you the link to the final edit.
Great.
Thank you, Kendra. You're wonderful. Good
talking with you, Val.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time. It's clear to see from up here. The world seems small. We can sit together. It's so beautiful, you and me. We meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free. Sometimes you need to go and take a step back to see the truth around you. From a distance you can tell